Chapter 30. Bidash, 9th of March, present day. Apparently Jacob trapped himself. That sounds more like something I would do, and have done, more than once. Well, I didn't see that coming. Actually, I'm not entirely sure I understand what he said to me. Sorry, did you say Jacob designed the trap? The old bastard nods, still chuckling slightly, the wheeziness lingering in his breathing. That's right. What? How? Why would he? Why do you think? Because I tricked him, of course, and it all started when I got my hands on this. He rubs the top of the skull lovingly. When I heard about it, at first I wanted to get my hands on it just to piss in the bastard's eye sockets, but when I saw it aglow with so much talent, well, I was delighted. Thought I'd find the key to let me unlock the doors of reality and escape this pitiful existence, but powerful though it is, it's not enough. So what did you do? I don't really care. A thought's coming to my mind, and I need to give it space to come together fully, let it become complete. In the meantime, I just want to keep him talking. Stalling, basically. Well, I knew about Jacob, obviously. I was keeping careful tabs on you and your heathen mentor. More than one of the men I studied under talked in hushed tones about their pet angels. They all thought of them as possessions rather than separate souls tangled in with their bearers, but then they were mostly short-sighted fools who sought power through force. Amazing how many magicians are vainglorious idiots, pursuing short-term plans, never able to see much beyond the end of their noses. He sighs and walks away from the skull, painfully bending and taking his seat again. So you tricked Jacob in the same manner? I can taste the idea. Almost it's on the tip of my tongue. Oh, no. Ben clucks his tongue. Jacob was never vainglorious, never short-sighted, never a fool, except perhaps regarding the world and certainly to love. Isn't it funny how someone so incredibly smart, a genius about so many things, can also be so naive about others? That certainly matches my memories of Jacob. Kind, gentle, brilliant, and far too good for this world. Somehow, despite all he saw, he always maintained this innocent hope, this belief in humanity that most of us have blunted by too much contact over too much time with too many people. Now, I get it. The thought that's been bothering me. The skull winked at me. The skull winked at me when Ben first came in, and if Jacob's in the skull, that means it was Jacob who winked at me. Plus, Ben said all the Enochian runes, all of this angel-level magic isn't his doing, that he had to use the duo trapped in the skull, somehow wielding it to force them to do his bidding. But if he can wink at me, perhaps he's not so totally under Ben's control as he thinks. I'm less than half listening to what he's saying now. Ben's rambling on, dishing out backhanded compliments about how wonderfully good Jacob is on the one hand and what a major weakness that is on the other, or some such general blather. Considering how taciturn he was the whole time he ran us ragged looking for the vernacle, he's got plenty to say for himself now. Guess he's been storing it all up for 800 years. My eyes are fixed on the skull. I'm not looking at it. I don't need to explode my front cortex and turn myself into a vegetable, but I am trying to study it, to understand if the flaming eyes mean it can see me. Whether the holes in the sides means Jacob can hear the entire conversation, can hear me. I've got to do something. This is all taking too long, and all this time Aisha is suffering. If I can just get out of here, go get her and Isaac. With what we know now, Benedict won't stand a chance. We can ride in, clear him out, and rescue Jacob and Nanael. No problem. All I need is for me to escape. So I look at the skull, staring at it, thinking through that tip of my tongue idea. I can't think of any other way to be sure except to try it. Here we go. I take some deep breaths, psyching myself up for what's to come. I yell, Jacob! Nan! Let me out! Then I clamp my jaw down hard and fast, locking the clenched muscles tight. But not before I poke my tongue out. I've angled my head back so that as soon as I feel it sever, I can open my mouth back up, catch the severed appendage and swallow hard. My mouth fills with blood, and my cry startled Ben, pulling him back from his reverie so he turns in my direction. Blood pours down the back of my throat, filling my larynx, a larynx blocked by the severed remnant of my tongue. Ben hurries over. It's obvious I'm choking, and he tries to push his fingers in to work them through my pressed lips to find out what's happening, but he's old, frail. I want to bite his fingers off, but I'm worried I won't get through the bone, and that'll give him leverage to pry my teeth open. So, even as my body's automatic systems press their equivalents of the panic button, even as my oxygen intake cuts off to zero, I'm strong enough, both physically and will-wise, to keep the prying fingers out. And through it all, over the tilt of my chin half obscuring my view, over the rising physical panic as my vision greys and spots red around the edges, I keep my eyes fixed on the skull, hoping Jacob can hear me in there, hoping he can let me go. And with that thought, darkness takes me and my breathing stops completely and I'm gone. I'm back. My tongue's here too, so Ben's failed. That body's dead. I snap my eyes open. I'm in the same room. A new body, room covered in the sterile white chamber. Ben's back is to me as he fusses with my last form, no doubt trying to see if I'm still alive. When it disintegrates, atomizing, that gives him the answer. He turns, his eyes searching till they lock on mine. Damn it. It didn't work. He chuckles, wags his finger as he stumps over towards me. Now, Paul, that won't work. A lovely idea, appealing to Jacob for help, but doomed to fail for two reasons. Thanks to his own designs, he's helpless in there to do anything but follow my instructions, and second, because of the skull itself. He pauses, takes a breath wincingly. Apparently all this walking and talking is hard on him. As I just choke to death on my own blood and tongue, I don't feel particularly sorry for him. Something about it calls to our reincarnating. There's a link there somehow. I experimented, of course. Do you know, when you committed harikari to escape the shit wizard, there was a whole family of dead bodies just next door. I know, I killed them all myself, but thanks to my hiding the skull in Perpon morgue, pop, there you were. Not this skull, but well, we'll get to that later. Anyway, off you went, skipping past all those convenient corpses to come to where I wanted you. Made it much easier to put you in that poor morgue attendant's body after the fight with the wolf pack, too. My heart is buried down in my guts. He's thought of everything. I've shown my hand, made my play, and it's not worked. Here I am, back in another of these blasted Wall Deco corpses he's strung up all around, and she's still burning. Somewhere out there, Aisha's still fucking burning. I've got to get out. Got to. There's only one option. Talking's getting us nowhere. Appealing to Jacob's a washout. That means I can only do one other thing to get out of here. Ben sees it. The moment when I make the decision, his eyes widen and he starts to pole his way towards me, hurrying as fast as his crooked, aged legs will carry him. Not fast enough. Head tilt, tongue out, bite! Ride out the pain, catch the severed piece, swallow, choke, die. My eyes snap open. Ben's swinging his head around wildly, looking for me, trying to see where I'll pop up next. He's about 2 meters away from me. His gaze skips past me, then whirls back. Wait, Paul! He stretches the hand out, pleading towards me. Don't make me do this! No time to listen. I've done enough of that. Burning! So, tilt, bite, catch, swallow, choke, die. My eyes fly wide. Ben's nowhere near me. He's on the opposite side of the circle from me, except now he's not looking for me, no. He's pulled a metal box to him from the cabinet he's flung open with his mind. I've no idea what he's got planned, but whatever it is, it can't be good. Looks like I need to hurry up, tilt the head back and tongue out. Eyes open. His back's to me and he's working away furiously like a man possessed, doing something to that particular corpse. Worry about that later, Paul. She's on fire out there. Tilt that head back. Eyes. Whatever he was doing is finished. He's back to looking around, trying to spot me, but there's less panic there now. Damn, I'm not sure what he's done, but either whatever it is has settled his nerves, or he's a hell of a poker player. Paul, you don't want to do this. Stop now. The certainty in his voice is unnerving, but I've got no other option. I've got to see this through. Tilt! My eyes spring open, and I gag, retching at the bitter taste of metal. Then the pain comes. It's so close to the agony I've been inflicting on myself each time I've bitten my tongue off, it takes me a minute to recognize it as not self-inflicted. There's a metal cage around my head, like I've been inserted face first into a bear trap. A wedge fills my mouth, and attached to it is an iron spike driven through my tongue, nailing it to my palate. I was afraid of something like this. Ben pauses, stops. No, let's be honest. I was afraid you'd bother me incessantly with inane interruptions and stupid braggadocio. I intended this to silence you if it became unbearable. Luckily, it works just as well for ending this petulant attempt to escape. A neg's bridle, so perfectly employed a few centuries back to silence those incessant women incapable of guarding their tongue in place and keeping their peace. It works just as well for keeping your tongue in place, doesn't it? The good God damn it. Everything. The bastard seems to have thought of everything. Now, where was I before you so rudely interrupted me? He scratches his chin, relaxed. He knows he's got me, just like he knows exactly what he was talking about. All of this is just posturing, rubbing in that he's caught me again, the fucking arsehole. Ah, yes, we were talking about Jacob and the skull. I realized that the skull on its own wasn't powerful enough to break through reality itself and let me escape, so I needed to augment it somehow. There were experiments, attempts to combine various magical creatures with it or place their spirits inside. None of it worked. The skull's magic just burnt them away. So I knew I needed to think bigger, more talented, and what's more talented than an angel, huh? Man, I wish my hands were free so I could slap that shit-eating grin off his face. Ben looks entirely too pleased with himself. Of course, I couldn't go waltzing up like this to a Bene Elohim. Nanael would have smelt my sins, necessary though they were, a mile away. Luckily, I had an answer to that. Do you know the Jotun? Oh, sorry. He waves a hand in my direction. I forgot you can't answer that. Still, I'm sure a man as well-travelled as you does. They have a technique for placing the soul in an egg and storing it away from the body. Well, I did something much the same, putting most of my soul, and all of my sins, outside myself, leaving them far away so Nanael couldn't feel them, not without tearing my mind to pieces, and they do so hate to hurt us pitiful little human ants, don't they? He walks over and forces a finger inside my mouth, testing the restraint. He pushes it down gently, but it's still enough to make the pain explode, radiating up my jaw till my eyes ache with the agony. He tightens the screw, then brings his hand out, drying his finger by wiping it delicately on my cheek. So I went to meet this great magician, this angel bearer, and what did I find? A simpering Nancy, nothing more. Oh yes, a charming man with the looks to match his wit and manners, but effete and clearly attracted to me. And that was when I hatched my plan, when I worked out how I was going to capture an angel. He leans on me, keeping his hand on my shoulder, but not like before, not gripping to hurt me, more to keep his balance, to help him stay upright, or as if he is drawing energy or comfort from the contact. It makes me want to spit. A hard task when every dribble of drool just slips uncomfortably down my throat, my swallowing reflex interfered with by the metal bit, blocking my mouth. So I seduced him, studied under him, and studied from under him as well. His lip twists, an almost grimace, but trembles too. He was kind and patient, and I took all I could from him regarding Kabbalah. All the time, I pushed him to be better, do greater things, told him that if he bore an angel, he carried the responsibility of all the Israelites on his shoulders, that he had to find ways to help them, to protect them from a world so keen to blame them for everything, and to punish them with ghettos and pogroms. Nanael wouldn't get involved directly, always the problem he came back to. So I tried to set his incredible mind to solving that problem, finding a way to bypass that natural angelic resistance, to find a solution that would suit them both. Then, when time's ravages started to be obvious, when I knew my body's aging would betray me, I died, but oh. His eyes enlarge, a smile creasing his endless wrinkles, multiplying them so there's not an inch of skin on his face that's not crinkled. Oh, how I died. He lets go of my shoulder to rub my arm, an almost affectionate gesture, then steps away. I can see the excitement of the story has taken him now. I wish it would take him, ideally, straight to hell. He told me the stories of what had happened to those who had tried to copy him and his brother's ritual that bound them to the angels, so I staged my suicide as an accident. I carved sufficient Enochian runes into my body to summon, but not to hold, a higher being. Not enough to risk it working, of course, just enough to summon a touch of the higher dimensions into a simple mortal frame. I believe my head exploded. What a mess it must have made. Brains and skull shards embedded in the walls. Of course, I left a note. In it I confessed my eternal love and my desire to be equal to him and to live as well for eternity. I wanted the guilt of my passing to be the first worm I placed inside the apple orchard of his heart. The agony in my tongue multiplies because I'm shaking. That shivering reaction as shock sets in, but it's not just the physical pain. It hurts my soul to hear what he did. I knew Jacob, spent so many years with the gentle, kindly soul who looked for the good in everyone. To hear how his trust was turned to love, and his love turned to this utter betrayal, sickens me to the very core of my being. And of course, Ben's not even got to the worst part. Fast forward a few decades after I regained an adult body, and some careful inquiries told me that Jacob had withdrawn from the world. As I'd hoped, he'd turned to selfless acts, no doubt seeking to make amends for the guilt he'd ascribed to himself for my last death. When I heard about the project he'd done with Rabbi Liao, building the golem to protect the Jews, I was almost beside myself with glee. It couldn't be more what I'd wanted. His reaction, everything I'd dreamed of. He's pacing now, the aches and pains of his aged body apparently forgotten as he swept up in the memory's excitement. It was simple to seduce him again. I was the only man he'd ever loved, the only physical companionship ever shared. What a distinct feeling it must have been compared to the cold, emotionless intertwining of his soul with Nanael, thanks to the Jotun's magic. Neither Jacob nor Nanael could recognize my essence, and it caused me no difficulty to worm my way into his heart once more. Except this time, I presented a different character, a fellow Jew, tormented by guilt over my unnatural preferences. After enough years to be certain of the impact, my suicide this time was not in the least magical. A knife to the wrists in the metal soaking tub was less dramatic than the dripping ichor off the walls I'd left before. But the note was more impactful than even that had been. I spoke of my disgust, both with myself and him, to have committed such abhorrent and unclean acts, my certitude of damnation for us both because of our actions, and I laid all the responsibility, with carefully constructed sentences, at his door. It was his fault for having indulged in his desires and the damned temptations of the physical world. I made my death his burden to bear, and I made sure that the first worm spread to every single apple that could ever be born from the trees of his soul. I brought rot to his Eden, blighting his material paradise for all time. He went mad with grief, and retreated from all engagements, a hermit that kept away from everyone else he knew, especially his beloved brother, to avoid marring them as he had the men he'd loved. My deaths tainted the physical world for him, and he fasted to extremes, living in poverty and squalor. He wanted to escape from the chains of his mortal frame, but more than that, he wanted to protect his scattered tribe as his first love had suggested he do. I would provide him with the key to both. By all that's holy. The salty taste of my saliva tells me just how close I am to throwing up. Maybe if I do, I can choke on that, die, once more start getting away again, but no. There's enough bodies left. He could get the nag's bridle on one long before I could exhaust the total supply. Fucking hell. There's no man there. Nothing left in the wizened body in front of me that could be called human. No human could do this to another, especially one so pure and innocent as Jacob. This is work that Satan, if he exists, would describe as abominable. I don't doubt Ben pulled it off, convinced Jacob of everything he wanted, so he can't ever have been the man I believed him to be. Everything about him is a lie. All of it must have been an act. I can't bear the only other possibility. That this terrible monstrosity all stems from one simple act by me. An act I believed to be selfless, trying to save the world. When I embraced magic to destroy the Grail, I accepted the price was my soul. I didn't realize the price would be Ben's, too.